What's up, Tailgaters? My name is Tailgate Nate. Welcome back to my channel, and today, I'm going to be uploading my Week 7 Top 25 for you guys. Again, the season is nearing the halfway point. How crazy is that, right? My excuse for not uploading this video yesterday, which was planned, is I had family come into town, so I ended up spending time, to my college town, so I ended up spending time with them instead of worrying about this. But no worries, it's going to be out today. And you guys are actually going to get an extra video this week, as now that we're nearing the halfway point, I'm going to start my college football playoff predictions from this point on. Right, we've gotten a good idea on what these teams are going to look like. My playoff predictions are going to come as the weeks go on. But hey, I appreciate you guys for sticking with me here on this channel. Again, the college football season is coming fast. And if you want to stay informed, make sure you hit the subscribe button, ring the bell. I do top 25 videos, weekly predictions, now college football playoff predictions, which I hope to be weekly, and then live updates on my community tab on Saturdays as well, the weekends that I can. So you want to stick around for all that, hit the subscribe button to be sure you stick around. But without further ado, let's dive into my top 25 for this week. And here are some teams that just barely missed out. My honorable mentions as usual. A couple teams from the Pac-12, Washington State and Oregon State, and both of them actually play each other this week. So that's going to be a huge series in terms of top 25 matchup potential there, right? Those are going to be both teams that can very much push their way into the top 25 at some point this season. Heck, they may have already been in your top 25 at some point this season. But those are two teams that play each other this week, and that's going to be very, very interesting. Some teams from the Big Ten in here as well. Minnesota, Purdue, Illinois. Illinois is actually ranked in the AP poll, and Maryland there as well. All those teams are really, really close to breaking in the poll. Again, there are just 25 teams I like a little more than those teams. Look, I'm really high on Purdue, and if I had a 26th spot, Purdue would probably end up getting that spot. There's just one team that I couldn't drop out of the poll. We'll find out who that is in a little bit, but the Big Ten doing really, really well right now. They got a couple teams, again, just waiting to break through. In the SEC, Texas A&M played Bama close. I know they're 3-3, but they deserve an honorable mention here. And then Florida still on there as well. They're at 4-2. They have a big game with LSU, who you could also put on this list as well, LSU being a team that should still be considered for a spot in the top 25. You also have teams in the group of five realm. Or excuse me, let's start with the ACC. You have Florida State, who's still on this list. They got a big one with Clemson coming up. They beat them. They're most assuredly ranked. Notre Dame here as well. They're very close to breaking in to my poll. And then lots of teams from the group of five realm. Tulane, really close. James Madison, Coastal Carolina, a couple teams out of the Sun Belt that are still undefeated. And then Cincinnati. Again, Purdue would get my 26th spot. Cincinnati would probably get my 27th spot. If they would have beat South Florida by more, they probably would have been ranked. Couple things I still want to see get a little bit better for Cincinnati. But without further ado, let's go ahead and break into my top 25. And it's going to start right down here at the bottom of the list. I couldn't drop Baylor out of the poll. I still believe that this is a really, really good Baylor team. They've played some really good competition up to this point as well. Again, look at who their two losses are to. BYU and Oklahoma State. Both are teams that are also still ranked, as you see BYU still on this list as well. BYU dropped out of a lot of the national polls, and I don't quite get that sentiment from BYU. I think BYU is going to be just fine, although they do have a tough game coming up against Arkansas. They dropped 6 spots after their loss to Notre Dame last week, and they are at 21. But Baylor here is at 25. I still like the Baylor Bears, and again, they were on bye week. They didn't play. There were just other teams that ended up jumping them, in my mind, from their performances last week. One of those being the Kansas State Wildcats. Now, I have them down here at 24th. I believe the national media has them at, 17th or something like that. I don't think Kansas State is worthy of a ranking like that quite yet. They beat Oklahoma, but look at what Oklahoma's doing now. They're kind of falling off the face of the earth. Kansas State's still got some games coming up here against the likes of Texas and Baylor and Oklahoma State, where I think we're really going to find out about this Kansas State team. Oklahoma has not looked great up to this point in the season, so we'll see how Kansas State adjusts to maybe some tougher competition as the line comes down to it. North Carolina is here at 23. I couldn't not rank the Tar Heels. They've been in the honorable mention list for too long, and they have proven themselves why they are a team worthy of being ranked. They beat Miami last week. I think that's a really talented Miami group, which, again, has some things to work out there as well. But North Carolina, absolutely a team that I think deserves to be ranked here. I mean, they've played teams really, really well this season, and they're starting to get together those complete performances, right? This is starting to feel like a complete North Carolina team. Drake May has performed exceptionally well as the quarterback of this team. And North Carolina is just playing some good football overall right now. Playing overall some really, really good football. Drake May, only a freshman, one of the premier quarterbacks in the entire country. He is playing really, really well. So I like where North Carolina is at. They're starting to put together complete performances. They're here at 23rd. I don't punish Kansas for that loss against TCU. I think TCU is a pretty good team, and Kansas is only down one spot. They were 21 last week. They are now, 22 this week. Jalen Daniels went down with an injury. Hopefully he is okay, and hopefully he gets back. But even with that backup quarterback in, Kansas still showed fight, and they were very much so in that game. They were in that game against TCU even when Jalen Daniels went down with the injury, which I think is great news for Kansas fans because who knows how long Jalen Daniels is going to be out, right? Who knows how long Daniels will be out. That's very promising as Kansas has a lot of tough competition coming up here in the coming weeks. I mean, they still have to play Baylor. You still have to play Oklahoma State. Coming up this week is Oklahoma on the road. I mean, Kansas has got some tough games left, and we'll see what the Jayhawks do for the rest of the way. But as of this point, this has been a very good team, and we'll see what happens here with Kansas, and hopefully Jalen Daniels can get nurse himself back to health. Meanwhile, BYU, again, I've already talked about them a little bit. They only dropped 6 spots for me here at the 21st position. I really like the way still that BYU is playing. And I just think Notre Dame is starting to find themselves. I think Notre Dame is starting to find that rhythm, find that groove, especially on the offensive end. And BYU fell suspect to that this past week, right? Not really punishment here for BYU. In fact, it's just Notre Dame is starting to get better, starting to improve. Things I still want to see out of the Notre Dame Fighting Irish, but as of right now, I still like the way that BYU's been playing. They have some really good wins under their belt there as well. And that's why BYU has only dropped 6 spots to number 21. As now we enter the top 20, and we see Texas back in the poll. I mean, come on. I can't not rank Texas after what they did to Oklahoma last year. Last week, I should say. Just an absolute mauling. And when Texas was up 21-0, I thought, okay, well, Texas blew a lead last year. This can still change. But it didn't change, and Texas just kept on going and going and going. 49-0. 49-0. It's to my knowledge, and I'm pretty sure this is true, the largest win in the Red River history, which is crazy, which is insane. Texas has played really, really well. They got Quinn Ewers back now. I feel a lot more confident in this team with Quinn Ewers at the quarterback realm. Their defense has played exceptional in moments where they had to, right? When they played a really good defense against Alabama and just this past week against Oklahoma there as well. Granted, they didn't have Dylan Gabriel, yes, but Texas, that offense was moving. That defense was playing well. Texas is a team to fear in the Big 12 now, and they already have 2 losses. Playoff conversation might be just out of reach, but this is going to be a dangerous Texas team if you still have to play them on the schedule for those fans in the Big 12. Kentucky drops to 19 here, drops 6 spots. And again, I didn't punish Kentucky as harshly as some people may think they needed to. They didn't have Will Levis at quarterback for that South Carolina game. And again, South Carolina is a team that can pull out some surprising wins. But I mean, Kentucky's got to find ways to get this ship turned around. That's 2 straight losses now. And they can absolutely lose a 3rd straight game when they play against Mississippi State this next week. Hopefully Will Levis is back for that game. I don't know what his status is looming up in the air like right now. So hopefully Levis can get back, play in that game. But, I mean, hey, this is a Kentucky team right now that is definitely going to need some sort of boost because they are starting to fall off the map. And, again, another tough opponent coming up this week. We'll see if they continue to fall or if Kentucky rebounds. Syracuse jumped 6 spots, even though they played on the bye week. Now, normally my philosophy is, well, teams that are on a bye week don't move. But again, in my opinion, it just shows you how close some of these teams toward the bottom of the list are, because I had Syracuse jumping all of those teams even though they didn't play, which means Kentucky fell below them. Kansas fell below them. North Carolina was already below them, right? But Kansas fell below them, right? There are just a lot of teams that fell below Syracuse, and that's why Syracuse jumped up here. And I also went and rewatched some Syracuse film, or somehow was watching highlights of that Syracuse game. Man, this Syracuse team is dangerous, and this is a really, really good group. And there's a pretty big game coming up this week. I believe they play NC State coming up this week, if not next week. Although I think they have NC State coming up somewhere soon. Going to be a really interesting game there for Syracuse, and I think it's going to be a big prove-it game for them. We'll see if they can prove it. Utah drops 9 spots after their loss to UCLA. Granted, UCLA looking like a very good team right now, but Utah, they had been so dominant over the past couple of weeks, and then it just didn't happen against UCLA. I thought Utah didn't necessarily play a bad game, but that is not the Utah defense that we are used to seeing from this group, right? So hopefully Utah can kind of, my apologies if that made a horrendous sound. I just hit my pop filter. But no, I mean, we'll see if Utah can get back to form, and Utah's still got some opportunities, especially this week when they play USC, to come out with some really, really big wins and try to get into a New Year's Six game. But Utah, as of right now, got some things that they need to improve on. They have fallen here to number 17. Wake Forest is at 16, and I really like the way that Wake Forest is playing right now. They did not move from last week. And they ended up beating Army this past week. Now, again, Wake Forest doing some really nice things with Sam Hartman, A.T. Perry. That defense is playing, well, again, still has a lot of things to work out, but playing a little bit better than I think some people expected. Wake Forest all around, they've already gone through Clemson. They've already gone through Florida State. Still got Syracuse on the schedule. Still got NC State on the schedule. So still time for Wake Forest to really find and prove themselves. Here they are at number 16, did not move from last week after they beat Army. Moving in now to the top 15. A lot of risers here in the top 15. You see Mississippi State enter my top 15. Again, I said last week this was a team that I had been underrating for a long time. And now I think Mississippi State not really getting the respect they deserve in the national media poll, right? I have them at number 15. This is a really, really good team. This is a team that's going to play Kentucky this next week. And I think we're going to find out a lot about both Mississippi State and Kentucky this next week here as well, right? So Mississippi State, a team that loves to throw the ball. They got some guys back there that can run the ball there as well. They just beat Arkansas this past week, a game that Arkansas really needed to win. Mississippi State said, nah, we're going to go ahead and take care of business here. Took care of business. Mississippi State's going to be a really good team in the SEC this year. I could see this team finishing with a really good record. Maybe can push their way for a spot in a New Year's Six bowl game. But this is the Mississippi State team that you got to figure if you still have them on the schedule. But the road for the Bulldogs is really, really hard. It's a hard road coming up here for the Bulldogs. They still have to play another Bulldog in Georgia. They also still have to play Bama there as well. Kentucky is this week. And Ole Miss later down the line as well. Still a lot of tough games for Mississippi State. See how they handle the tough schedule coming up here. TCU at number 14. I have jumped them 5 spots after they beat Kansas this past week. Really like what I'm seeing from TCU, especially on the offensive end. Max Duggan is making some amazing throws. We finally saw Quentin Johnson get involved, or seemingly like really get involved in the offense this past week against Kansas. And TCU's defense is starting to find its footing. Now, it has a long way to go, but it's starting to find its footing. TCU is playing some really good football right now, and I don't know how else you want me to explain to you. TCU's at number 14, just playing really, really well right now. NC State and Oregon each jump a spot this past week. NC State did just enough to get past Florida State. So I don't punish them. In fact, I raise them because I think Florida State's a pretty good team. So NC State here at number 13. And then Oregon here at number 12. They were able to win their game this past week against Arizona to improve to 5-1. And ever since that loss to Georgia to open up this year, this has been a different Oregon team. Bo Nix has played pretty darn well. This is a defense that has also played really well, right? Oregon still got some toughies on the schedule, though. Again, still got to play UCLA. Utah still on the schedule there as well. So this is an Oregon team that has got the road, that has got a tough road ahead of them. Excuse me. The Oregon still got a tough road ahead of them. We'll see how they can handle it. But, I mean, as of right now, I mean, Oregon looking like a really, really good team in the nation. I got them at number 12. But jumping up 7 spots, the biggest mover you see on this slide is UCLA. And UCLA is a team that, look, I'm starting to like more and more. They struggled at the beginning of this season. They got past Washington in a really good performance. And the question was, is this the UCLA team we are going to see? Is this the UCLA team we are going to see throughout, right? Is this the UCLA team we're going to see all this season? And after that performance against Utah, I am really confident that UCLA can absolutely push their way to be a top 10 team in the nation this season. But again, UCLA still got USC on the schedule. I believe they still have Oregon on the schedule there as well. So still definitely a UCLA team that has games where they're going to need to be able to pull one out, right? USC playing really good football. Oregon playing really, really good football. So UCLA still got some tough tests on the schedule, but if they play like they just did against Utah, that's going to be a scary, tough team to stop there. UCLA, I really did contemplate putting them in my top 10 because they were just so impressive this past week, but I didn't, A, want to overreact, and B, there are 10 teams that I think are more obvious choices to be in the top 10 as now we enter the top 10. And number 10 is Ole Miss. They're looking really, really good right now. I think they're performing a lot better than some people may have thought that Ole Miss was going to perform this year. So they jump up a spot after Utah's loss here to number 10. Again, they have wins like Kentucky under their belt. Excuse me, guys. I apologize. But they have that Kentucky win under their belt. Still tough games to come, right? Still got to play Mississippi State. Still got to play Alabama, right? There's still tough games on the schedule for the Ole Miss Rebels. And we'll see how they end up playing those tough games later down the road. But as for right now, Ole Miss playing some really good football at this point. Penn State is here at number 9. And, Penn State's playing really well as well now. Coming off their bye week, the road starts to get dangerous for Penn State. They got to go on the road to play Michigan, and then they host 2 really good teams at home in Minnesota, which is going to end up being the whiteout game, and then Ohio State, who you can make the case for being the top team in the nation. Spoiler alert. But Penn State playing some really good football right now. I'm loving what I'm seeing from Sean Clifford and this defense. They're really good in turnover margin there as well. Penn State's a team that you got to watch out for in the Big Ten. That's a team, I know everyone's going to talk about Ohio State and Michigan and what happens if those 2 teams are 11-0. If Penn State at the end of the season finds themselves 11-1, watch out for Penn State. That's going to be a very dangerous team to anyone that still has to play them on the schedule. Oklahoma State still here at number 8. They actually jump up a spot from last week. Again, Oklahoma State just was very impressive in that past win over Baylor. Ended up having to come back to get the win against Texas Tech this next week. So they had a little bit of extra work to do, but they ended up pushing through it. They ended up getting it done, and Oklahoma State raises a spot here to number 8 because of the loss to Utah. USC and Michigan, they actually both drop a spot this past week. Why? Because someone else below them was above them. Michigan kind of hung close with Indiana there for quite a long time, for about 3 quarters. And then in the 4th quarter, Indiana was just out of gas, and Michigan was able to take control of that game. USC played a really good game this past week here as well against Washington State. At times, it looked like Washington State was going to be able to come out with an upset victory there, and then USC again took control in the second half and put a nix to that conversation. So really good stuff here from Michigan and USC, but there is a team that did jump them, and we'll find out who that is here in a little bit. But, I mean, talking about both of these teams right now, both these teams still absolutely in the playoff conversation, still absolutely teams that you could consider for New Year's Six bowl game spots. In fact, Michigan USC, a lot of people's Rose Bowl matchup right now, and you'll find out my Rose Bowl pick here later on this week, either tomorrow or Thursday. So, I mean, look, for both these teams, playing some good football right now. USC's got a tough game with Utah this week, and Michigan's got a tough game with Penn State. Probably both teams' biggest challenges up to this point in the season. So we'll see how that goes. But now moving into the top 5, Tennessee is here at number 5. I mean, wow. Tennessee did not look back at all when they played LSU. I mean, they just kept putting it on. Tennessee is looking really, really good right now, playing some tremendously good football. But again, there are still questions about this Tennessee team. They play a really, really good style of offense, and that's not the question mark on this team. We know their offense can play well. The defense, even though it only held LSU to 13 points this past weekend, Jaden Daniels threw for 300 plus passing yards, which is not something you want to see out of this Tennessee secondary, and especially not even in a game where they held LSU to 13 points. Jaden Daniels was still able to throw for over 3 football fields on this secondary. So this is a Tennessee team that still got some questions about and still wonder how good this team really is, especially on the defensive end. There's no doubt this is one of the best offenses in the nation, but they play Alabama this next week. That is going to be a really intriguing game. Rocky Top is going to be rocking. College Game Day is going to be there again this year. They were already there for the Florida game. Now they're going to be there for the Alabama game as well. So for the Tennessee Volunteers, I mean, hey, this is a really, really interesting team. I want to see more out of their defense, and we'll see what happens with Tennessee moving forward. Again, they still have Georgia on that schedule. They still have Alabama on that schedule. Lots of tough games coming up for Tennessee for them to prove themselves. Clemson and Georgia don't move from last week. I still got Clemson number 4. Still got Georgia here at number 3. Clemson's the obvious 4, in my opinion, right now. I mean, they were able to beat Boston College with apparent ease. And Clemson's playing some good football right now, starting to find that offensive rhythm. In fact, they probably have found that offensive rhythm that plagued them last year. They just weren't able to find the offense. Finally have found the offense. The defense is playing well. I like Clemson. Really, really like Clemson this year, the way that this team is playing. Georgia does not move after their past win against Auburn, where they pushed Auburn into the ground. Kind of surprised the announcement hasn't come out saying that Brian Harsin is gone off of this team. But, hey, they're, again, maybe not firing Brian Harsin after. That's a conversation for another day, though. Let's talk about Georgia. Georgia, again, after some shaky performances, probably did not play their best game against Auburn, yet they still won 42-10, which probably shows you how good Georgia is or how disappointing Auburn is or whatever you want to say. But Georgia definitely still a top 3 team in America, and you can make the case why Georgia is number 2 or even number 1. But, I mean, when you look at these 3, these have been the top 3 teams in America all year long. And I think there's no denying that. Now, the order in which you should put them is up for debate. I did drop Alabama a spot and put Ohio State at number 1. And you can call it bias or whatever. You see the hat I'm wearing. You see some of the videos that are up on my channel. I think you guys know which way I lean. But being unbiased here for a second, giving you an argument for why these teams are where they are. Alabama in that Arkansas game fixed their offensive line. And the offensive line looked good. It still looked good here against Texas A&M, giving Jalen Milroe all the time in the world to throw. But I still have a question about Alabama. And it's not even that I didn't drop them because they didn't have Bryce Young. And hopefully Alabama can have Bryce Young in that game against Tennessee. Jalen Milroe, I think, had 3 or 4 turnovers on his own accord in that game against Texas A&M. So, but Alabama pulled it out. They found a way to win. And look, this is an Alabama team, though, that I still have one major question about, and that is the wide receiver group. This wide receiver group is just not as dominant as it has been in previous seasons. So for the Alabama Crimson Tide, this is definitely going to be a team that needs to improve in that wide receiver realm. Now that they have a lot of good talent, and that's not the question. Ja'Cory Brooks, Jermaine Burton, Cam Latu at tight end. It just needs to all mesh, and it needs to all find its place. And I know that's hard to do, especially when you have Jalen Milroe in there as well. And Bryce Young is a quarterback that, even if the wide receiver group doesn't have chemistry, can make those throws. But Alabama needs to start finding it, because it's going to start hurting them when they play some of the better teams later down the line, like Tennessee this week. But number one for me is Ohio State. And again, call it whatever you want. I believe this is the best team in America right now. C.J. Stroud is playing with his hair on fire, even without Jackson Smith-Njigba, and most weeks having at least one of their top two running backs hurt. Ohio State is just playing lights out, especially offensively. This defense is so much improved from where they were this past year, or from where they were last year. Granted, this is a team that has not played a dynamic offense, yes, but this is an Ohio State team that is playing tremendous defense. They have not allowed more than 21 points in a game so far this year. And look, Ohio State's on bye week, so they have a week to get healthy, especially on the offensive skill corps and in the secondary. But when this Ohio State team is fully healthy and ready to go, I believe that this is the best team in the nation, and I don't think a lot of people can stop this Ohio State team when they are clicking on all cylinders. Defense is playing so much better. C.J. Stroud is playing like a Heisman winner and is the clear-cut favorite as of right now. Ohio State's just a phenomenal team, and that's why I have them at number one in the nation. But let me know who you guys have at number one. In fact, let me know your entire top 25 if you would like to down in the comment section below. But that's going to do it for my Week 7 top 25. I appreciate you guys tuning in and watching this video. If you guys want to see more from me, again, I'm uploading weekly predictions and playoff predictions later this week. So please hit the subscribe button, like, comment, share, do anything you can to help support the channel. It does mean a lot to me. And remember to play hard, but tailgate harder. I'll see all you guys in the next video. Goodbye.